Welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlis here in the To Use Solgaleo. So despite looking like the sun and being based off the sun, it's actually going to be a Psychic Steel-type Pokemon, so things are going to get pretty weird. For starters, what you need to do is delete any fear of water from your brain when it comes to Solgaleo, and that's going to be a pretty good start because, yeah, this is going to be kind of weird. Like, you look at Solgaleo, and you're not going to think about its weaknesses to ground, ghost, fire, or dark, and that's kind of showing a lot of different things right here. Like, the 6th generation nerf to Steel-type Pokemon really coming in right now, that it used to be that Ghost and Dark were resisted by Steel, and now it's neutral. So, a lot of weaknesses right there, but overall, we do pick up that immunity to Poison, and then tons and tons of resistances. So, here's how it works. We only have 4 neutral hits. Everything else is either resisted, super effective, or immune. So we have normal, flying, rock, steel, grass, psychic, ice, dragon, and fairy. It's actually easier just to remember the things that are going to hit us neutrally, like fighting, bug, water, and electric. So overall, really good defensive typing. Do have to worry about quite a few moves, like ground and fire are fairly common, and then those ghost and dark hits will threaten you. So remember, if you see those things, run, because those are actually very scary for us. Looking at the typing offensively, psychic, it's not known for insane coverage. You know, we hit fighting and poison super effective, and that's kind of it. We are going to be resisted by psychic, steel, and immune by dark. And this isn't going to be super great for our steel typing because, yeah, we only get 5 different typings for super effective hits, but fairy, ice, and rock will be really nice with that steel. However, we will be resisted by steel if we go for psychic or steel type moves. So, a little bit of resistance, a little bit of coverage right there. Not the best, but we can certainly make do with it. And then checking out these stats for Solgaleo, not really sure what to make of it. It's like, it's a legendary Pokemon, has a ton of stats, but the bulk distribution is okay. Like 137 on hit points, that is crazy amount of hit points, and we can start surviving some really good stuff. Like 107 defense, 137 hit points, that is going to be very nice right there. 137 on the attack, so yeah, the stats are really solid, but I see just a little too much on the special attack, maybe 113 on special attack. Like, that's usable in its own right, so potential mix Solgaleo options if we want to take them. 89 on special defense with that 137 on the hit points, gonna be pretty nice as well. And then 97 speed. It's in a really weird speed tier because, yeah, we're outspeeding other legendary Pokemon with that 90 in the base speed. Something like the Dialga, something like Kyogre, Groudon. So we get outspeeds on those Pokemon right there. But then we get outsped by a ton of other Pokemon. Like 100 base speed, very common. And then a lot of Pokemon above that are even faster. So we're going to be getting beaten up quite a bit. We have the tankiness to survive it. And then we have the big attack to kind of dish some damage back. So that's going to be just the bulk of stats, legendary Pokemon. Let's see what it can do. So we're on Cerebi right now, and then I'm going to talk about Full Metal Body, because it wasn't a coincidence that I kind of threw Metagross up there. That Solgaleo is Metagross for all intents and purposes, because prevents other Pokemon's moves or abilities from lowering the Pokemon's stats. So, clear body. And yeah, that's kind of it. Other than that, we get Sunsteel Strike, which is going to be our exclusive move. User slams into the target with the force of a meteor. This move can be used on the target regardless of its ability. So ignores ability, has 100 base power. Going to be our main form of damage, because like I said with Lunala, 100 base power stab move, that's like our signature move. Ignoring ability is nice. Like, you think Mimikyu, boom, Disguise, doesn't even matter, gets one shot right there. So we get a lot of damage. Sturdy Pokemon tend to be rock types, so that's a super effective hit to just kind of bust down some sturdy Pokemon. That could be pretty good, and yeah, just kind of what we're working up into with this Sunsteel Strike, and then just mad amounts of damage overall. On that, we do get these Zen Headbutt, so that's gonna be like our physical coverage. Okay, we get our Psychic Stab move in right there, and then we see some weird stuff like Flash Cannon, Morning Sun, Crunch. We can start piecing together something that will work on the Solgaleo if we are going to be using it for that physical damage. Noble Roar is interesting because, yeah, this is like a crazy move that few Pokemon actually... When did Wailord pick up the Noble Roar? Wait, 1 second. Is that something new to the... Okay, so that's in 7th generation. And then we have the 6th generation right here. Why is no one talking about this? Alright, that's going in a trivia video. Because Wailord now has a Noble Roar. It was just the Litleo and Pyroar evolutionary line. Now it looks like some other Pokemon have picked it up, so it's not as fancy to go and see it on the Solgaleo. On that, Flare Blitz is definitely usable, and then we can go and check out some other things. Gets the Earthquake. So Earthquake going to work for coverage. We have Stone Edge. We have a couple of other things, so maybe we'll be able to use that to just really round out what we're going to get out of Solgaleo, and even the Wild Charge. So physical electric coverage if we need it, and let's go and check out some other things. So right here, Solgaleo, its bread and butter is going to be Z Splash. Now you might have just noticed right here, there's no splash on the Solgaleo. How are we supposed to get it? Well, that's where things start getting really funny, because Cosmog, that's right guys, like it's so weird trying to fathom that our legendary Pokemon have pre-evolutions in Pokemon Sun and Moon, but Cosmog actually has Splash. So if you keep Splash and level it up and then you turn into a Solgaleo in Sun version, that is going to be a way of getting Z Splash for your Solgaleo, which means that it's actually going to be gated. Now, I will say the most interesting thing about this is the hack detection behind it, because whenever you receive a Cosmog, that is going to be at the Lake of the Moon or Lake of the Sun. Now, this is just the in-game screen that I have for my Lunala, but just flip it around for the Solgaleo and then, you know, met at Altar of the Sun, or if it was met at level 55, well, it's impossible for it to receive Splash that way. So have that in consideration, that if you get one off Wonder Trade, or you see someone using it and then it turns out that it was met at level 55, that means that Pokemon is hacked and tampered with, so they are using an illegal Pokemon, which means it's very specific that it has to be the soft reset Cosmog effectively to be able to get it into that Z Splash. So that's going to be how you work it. Now, Normalium Z Splash gives you +3 to your attack, so you're getting 2.5 times your attack stat, which is why this is what I'm talking about. Like, you Z Splash, you literally splash into a moveset, and then you just go and find crazy amounts of success. So that's why I want to go and break down some of the other things about Solgaleo. So like we discussed with Lunala, if you get +1 in that speed, that's going to free up some other stats for you. So at level 50, if you go 164 EVs into the speed, that means you'll be able to outspeed 135 base speed Pokemon. But if you want to outspeed, say, Pokemon that are like 80 base speed, Jolly or Timid nature with a Scarf, so 80 base, beneficial nature, Scarf Pokemon, then you want to have just full speed investment, and then you're going to be good to go right there. So depending on that extra little bit of tankiness, however, we're not going to be doing something crazy like a Scarf or going for Z Hypnosis like on the Lunala, just Flame Charge. You use Flame Charge, and that is going to be your +1, which means Solgaleo, you can Life Orb Flame Charge, you try to outspeed everything, and then you just go for insane damage on your now Adamant Sunsteel Strike, Zen Headbutt, Earthquake, or whatever other coverage that you want. Zen Headbutt, like I said, doesn't really add too much to it. If you want to run it for stab, that's cool. If you're just going to Sunsteel Strike everything, Earthquake everything else, you can go for Crunch, other coverage, depending on what you need. But that's where we also go back into that Z move. So we have Normalium Z here for our Z Splash, and then that's where I would just take out the Zen Headbutt. It's not giving us too much else, and then our coverage is going to be better with Sunsteel Strike, with the Earthquake, and boom. That's pretty much it right there. Now, here's where it starts getting tricky. Like, that's where you might want to have that lesser speed investment, just to make sure we have that little bit of extra tankiness, because we are a legendary Pokemon, which means we're going to be using it in like free battles or restricted formats where other legendary Pokemon are allowed. So that means you have to bring in Solgaleo at the exact right time. You know, you have to use it to force a switch. Say you bring in on a Fairy-type Pokemon. That Fairy-type Pokemon's like, well, if I hit a Sunsteel Strike, I'm dead. I'm going to have to switch out. Or if you find a Pokemon, an opponent that's setting up, you know your setup is going to be better, even a slower Pokemon or something that doesn't threaten you. You know, you don't want to lead Solgaleo, you don't want to manually switch it into a crazy situation. You just want to be patient with it, throw out the Solgaleo, and then actually I would wait on the Z Splash, you know, use that Flame Charge, gain that speed, use your Z Splash. Now you're going to have a low amount of hit points, but it doesn't matter, because you're outspeeding a ton of Pokemon right here, and then your Sunsteel Strike's going to be one-shotting everything, Earthquake's going to be one-shotting everything else, and you still have Flame Charge for, like, Fire-type weak Pokemon, so yeah. You get decent coverage out of it, and then you just gain more speed, do insane amounts of damage, and that is going to be the best way to run Solgaleo, at least in my opinion. Like, normally, I say something like, oh, every moveset has its advantage and disadvantages, and that's why I kind of show all these things, you know. I make a lot of vague interpretations like, oh, here's some extra moves you can use. Here's a potential other moveset that you can run on this Pokemon. But I'm going to say Z Splash, it has that gimmick factor to it, like, yo, Splash Solgaleo, haha, look how funny that is. But then you Z move it, and then it just wrecks everything once you get a little bit of extra setup. So this is going to be the best might be a little too harsh of a word, maybe the strongest way of running Solgaleo. But you have some other options. You know, you have the Crunch, you have the Morning Sun, you have Stone Edge. Morning Sun is interesting because you can run that on the Life Orb set. So yeah, like Flame Charge instead of Splash, we have the Morning Sun. So now we have Sustain with our Life Orb set. We're still going to be getting a lot of speed. We still have a lot of extra things going for us. So if that can change it around, say we already have our Z move being used by another Pokemon or something weird like that. Then we have Stone Edge. 80% accuracy, high base power rock type move. You know, if you want to run that, you certainly can. And then our special coverage is surprisingly good. Like, we get the Psy Shock, we get the Flash Cannon, we have Flamethrower, so we just hit things really well, and we get a varied amount of coverage. Also, in double battles, you can Tech and Snarl, just make both opponents lose a special attack stat, and we still have the Calm Mind as well. So, if you find ways of getting speed in Solgaleo, ta-da! There's stuff you can do right there. Like the special on Solgaleo, I'd say is a little more viable than the physical on the Lunala. And I just wanted to bring up Metagross for like stat comparisons and stuff. So Metagross, it is slow, but it does get something like the Rock Polish. So you can Rock Polish the Metagross, make it super fast. Now you have a 135 attacking Pokemon that's slightly less tanky than the Solgaleo. So just things to consider. And then after you factor in stats and effectiveness out of items and stuff, Mega Metagross plays kind of the same. And like, that's where the weird things start coming into play. Like, we have Meteor Mash. That's a 90 base power move compared to the 100 on Solgaleo. And the Tough Claws, so Mega Metagross effectively becomes like a Life Orb Solgaleo that has more damage and more speed. So that's why, like, I just can't get these comparisons out of my brain. It's so silly how similar Solgaleo is to Metagross. And then I was also looking into other coverage things. So right now, we're on a type coverage calculator, and pretty much you just plug in some moves. That's why I was showing, like, Steel and Psychic. It's kind of gross, you know, 64 Pokemon are going to resist us. We don't get a lot of super effective hits. It's like Steel Ground, that's going to be pretty nice right there. 315 super effective and only 30 on that not very effective. And just kind of like, you want to use this if you're piecing together some really interesting movesets. The Dark and Steel, that is going to give us a lot less super effective hits and slightly less not very effective hits. Something that one is worth it as well. We also have the Stone Edge as an option. And just kind of showing Stone Edge could be a contender, but I think Ground, very reliable. You run it with that Steel, and you're going to do just fine with the Solgaleo. And now it's time to go and check out some damage calculations. And yes, Flame Charge will be enough to one-shot Kartana at +0. So just in case you needed that fact to sleep at night, or whenever you're in your next crazy competitive battle, and one of these situations come out, that if you have like Adamant Life Orb, you just Flame Charge, you do that extra damage, you outspeed everything now, and then you just go and one-shot the Kartana. So, showing some of the damage snowballing, and yeah, it's a viable move for coverage, and you can break sashes with it and follow up with damage. I don't know, it just works. So, looking at some, like, real matchups that we would expect, Sunsteel Strike against a Garchomp is going to be okay. Like, I have Jolly Nature here, just in case we're doing some other things. Well, if we have Adamant, it's going to be more damage. If we have Life Orb, it's going to be more damage. Now, once we get our Z move in there at +3, certainly going to be enough damage to be able to take out a Pokemon like the Garchomp or anything like that. So, let's go +3, boom, tons of damage. But there are some things that we do have to worry about with the Garchomp. Sunsteel Strike does show a weakness in Solgaleo compared to Lunala. It is a physical attack that makes contact, so that kind of disadvantages us in a lot of ways. Rocky Helmet, Rough Skin, Iron Barbs, those are going to affect us on the Sunsteel Strike. Also, Pokemon are more likely to have defensive investment than special defense investment because there's more physical attackers out there that are threatening. So that kind of puts Solgaleo at a slight disadvantage compared to Lunala, at least on raw damage numbers and stuff like that. Pokemon like Garchomp just happens to have a little bit more on the defense. Also has those defensive abilities and whatnot. So Sunsteel Strike will be doing less damage. We can get a 2-hit KO off of it, but Earthquake's a lot of damage. And I'm not doing this just like, oh, Garchomp beats Solgaleo, so Solgaleo's bad or anything like that. Just kind of showing the damage we can expect against most Pokemon with the Solgaleo. But once we get Z-Splash, then it doesn't matter. Then we kill everything. So let's go and look at it killing everything. That's why I want to go and bring up some other things. So we have Tapu Fini. I want to see a Pokemon like Tapu Fini because worst case scenario, we have like a bold, max hit point, max defense invested Pokemon. How are we going to do against it? Well, the neutral hit from Sunsteel Strike going to be fairly powerful, not enough to KO, just kind of showing the insane amounts of damage that we can put out. And then Tapu Fini, like, here's the good thing. Pokemon is full hit point, full defense investment. It's not going to be packing a lot of damage. Special attack, physical attack, it doesn't matter. It's not really going to be too much of a threat to us. So we'll be able to easily 2-hit KO it because it won't be able to do much to us. And even showing us some really good setup opportunities as well. Because Flame Charge, while it does have low damage, you know, Flame Charge into the Sunsteel Strike is going to build up a bit more. Or against a Pokemon like that, we don't even need to Flame Charge. We can just set up, do the damage, and then whatever option we need to take, we can take it, start finding some KOs with the Solgaleo right there. Other things, I was just looking into the Ferrothorn. There's a Ferrothorn out there, we bring in the Solgaleo. Ferrothorn doesn't care because, you know, who's going to run a special Solgaleo? Also, you know, if you're running special Solgaleo, maybe that could be a good thing against Ferrothorn. Other Pokemon, they're going to be hit super affected by those Fire-type moves. But yeah, we can set up Z-Splash and then Flame Charge, one-hit KO, a bold hit point defense Solgaleo. So that's kind of the craziness right there of that Flame Charge. Yet it's viable. It does the damage. Let's take a Pokemon like Scizor. Going to be much less tanky and doing almost 200% of Scizor's health. And that's kind of it. So we find different damage ranges, different tankiness, but overall the Sunsteel Strike actually does have some solid neutral KOs as well. So let's put this back to +0, and let's go and bring out a Pokemon. I like the Oricorio. That's just a really good Pokemon show. So Oricorio Ghost. With the Adamant Nature, without a Life Orb, that won't be enough right there. But once we have the Life Orb, we can take hits from, like, sweeping Pokemon with okay defenses. You know, I use Pokemon around the 75, 70 ranges and just kind of show their effectiveness. Also, we are tanky enough to where we can 2-hit KO, and if we are outspeeding them because of Scarf, because of Flame Charge, because of whatever we're running with a Solgaleo, it is going to work out pretty well. So there we go, guys. Talking a lot about the Solgaleo. I think it's really fun. Like, the Z-Splash does crazy amounts of damage if you can use that reliability and your tankiness to set it up. And then there's some other intricacies with the movesets, with choosing your typing and stuff. And it just turns out to be a fun and cool Pokemon, even though it is very, 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 very similar to the Metagross. So if you guys enjoy the video, hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.